This is First Up with Kane Cornes. Thanks to Sportsbet, I'm Sarah, Olle and Kane. We begin at NG Stadium where the Giants piled on 8 goals to the Suns, 3 in that final stanza. It was a statement-making win. I feel like you're so moved you've even got the scarf on.
I had to put the orange tsunami scarf on because they stormed home. The tsunami was back. I didn't see this coming. Look, it was an unbelievable game of football. It was really such a enthralling midfield battle. We'll get to that shortly, but here's the last term. They've got a habit of coming from behind. I thought Toby Green was unbelievable. It's all going to be about Tom Green, which we'll get to, but Toby himself had a huge impact. You can see what it means to him, the leadership in that, and the relief. Like, that was a stirring win. They really had no right. Minus 20 entries. Thought they were dominated against from stoppage early on. Three-quarter time, it was 4 centre bounce goals to 0, but they hung in there. And it was off the back of some of their leaders really standing up.
And what about the super sub? I know that Jake Stringer is known as the package, but we're renaming him today because he was just that. He was injected into the match for 2 goals and 6 score involvements. He was just so explosive when he came into the game, Kane.
It was perfect, wasn't it? And his ability to finish. That's all been about finishing in teams that have had real struggles finishing. But he comes on, finishes from there. I thought his aggression was strong. Like, this is elite. Like, that is him in full flight. So what an ideal sub to have. You can't do it every week because he'll decondition. So at some point he's going to have to play a full game. But he's the difference for me in terms of what he injected into the game. 9 touches, you said 6 score involvements, kicked 2 goals and had a real presence about him in the forward half.
The midfield battle, I mean, you mentioned it. It was irresistible. You couldn't look away. Noah Anderson, the Suns skipper, finishing with 42 disposals and 7 clearances. And then over to Tom Green, who had 16 clearances, if you don't mind, of his own, 31 disposals and a goal. I mean, this was an epic battle.
Oh, it was. So this is Anderson. So right from the start, he just had that look and feel about him, the way that he was covering the ground. I thought Rao and Miller also were terrific, but Noah Anderson's ability to win clearance and then to hurt you the other way, 15 score involvements. And then Tom Green, I reckon he sensed they were in real trouble. That tackle there from Anderson was freakish, by the way, but Tom Green had a career high 16 clearances, the most of any player this year. He kicked that unbelievable clutch goal where he did the double candy and finished and was huge. So these two, they're so young as well. What a privilege it is going to be to watch these two for the next 12 to probably 15 years, to be fair. Anderson's in all-Australian form and Green not far off as well. Has been doing it for a long period of time now. Both of them have.
There was a flashpoint earlier in the game. Eventually, Lockie Whitfield was subbed off with concussion after this incident involving Ben King. And I'm being quite deliberate with my language here, Kane, because I don't know if I want to describe this as a bump. What did you make of it all?
No, I can't believe it's a talking point. We had to discuss it because I thought Fox Footy made a big deal of it at halftime, and there's a player that's gone off with concussion after a collision. So it's going to be looked at. But he couldn't have done anything else. So there he is. He's actually attacking the footy, bending over with good technique. He gets there first. It's unfortunate that Lockie Whitfield comes off with an injury, but that's the game. Sometimes players are going to get hurt and there should be no case to answer. It wasn't a free kick. It was good technique, and it certainly, if it is looked at, should be looked at for about 15 seconds and thrown out. And hopefully you and I discussing it will be the last of it being a talking point this week.
Just given the way the Suns exploded out of the blocks, it was bizarre, really, that they let this game slip. They've now slipped out of the 8th. They're in 9th position for the first time this year, Kane. Are you worried about them at all, or is the ladder a little bit deceiving? They've only played 13 games.
Well, I'm slightly worried because I had a stupid bet on radio that if they didn't make the finals, I'd get a fireball shaved into my head, Rory Lobb style. And but they're too good not to play finals. Come on. If this team, with all of their talent, does not play finals, I was texting you halfway through the game saying they're going to win 2 premierships in the next 5 years. I still believe that, by the way. I think they're frightening, the amount of talent they've got. Players like Powell and Newland and Ainsworth, we never even talk about them. They're probably in another team's best 10 players. They'd be in Carlton's best 10, and Gold Coast have got them as sort of depth players. So if they do not play finals, it's one of the greatest failings of any team. You've said they've got the game in hand. I think their fixture is reasonably favourable. They'll play finals. They have to. If it isn't, it's going to be a huge talking point for for Damien Hardwick. But that's one they'd be really bitterly disappointed with because, yeah, I thought they were the better team today.
You'll have a fireball shaped into your head though, Kane, so we won't all be losers. Let's get to Marvel Stadium though, where it was one-way traffic. The Dogs absolutely trouncing the Tigers, and it was their skipper, Marcus Bontempelli, leading the way with 3 goals and 24 disposals.
Yeah, I couldn't believe the amount of space that he was given early. Like, just no respect for Marcus Bontempelli. Now, I get it. It's hard to tag all of them because they're absolutely stacked as well. There's Richards. He's the #1 rated player in the game. But that's an example of the space that Richmond gave Bontempelli. You're going to do that, and it was right from the start where he kicked, the first goal of the game. He had so much room to move. So 36, 12 score involvements, 3 goals, and they were the stars. I think they're 3 of the best 5 players in football. To have that in your team, what a blessing it is for Luke Beveridge, Richards, Darcy, and Bontempelli. And then you've got the others. Like, Fraser's a good player. We know Treloar subbed out today. He's an All-Australian. We know Ballydale's an All-Australian. Tim English is an All-Australian. They are absolutely stacked. And it was almost criminal that they sat outside of the 8 with that list leading into this game. That's the last time they'll be out of the 8 for the rest of the year. Their fixture is pretty favourable, and there's a lot of games at Marvel where they play so well.
Yeah, well, let's look at that fixture now. So these are the 9 remaining games for the Western Bulldogs. 6 of those 9, Kane, are at Marvel Stadium. So you're licking your lips if you're a Dogs fan, aren't you?
Absolutely licking your lips. What a game that is on Friday night against Sydney at the SCG. I think that'll be a challenge. There's some good games in there against Adelaide and Brisbane, and round 24 against Fremantle. So a couple of those games, Adelaide, Sydney and Fremantle, against teams that are really vying for that 8th spot or 7th or 8th spot, which the Western Bulldogs will be in the mix. But I mean, they're right in the mix to win this premiership, not just make the 8. How could they not be with the amount of talent that is in that list? And Sam Powell, their list manager, I think he's a genius, the way that he's been able to develop this list and keep adding to it. We've seen what Kennedy has done as an addition. He's been unreal to give them some depth and some midfield grunt. He's been able to go forward and score as well. So they don't have a weakness. I'd love a little bit more from Aaron Norton, clearly, but I just think that's the lot you get with Aaron Norton now at this stage of his career. And I guess the big unanswered question is Jamari Ugle-Hagan and whether they can get him back for a finals run.
When it comes to Richmond, though, it was always going to be a big challenge to match it with the Dogs, particularly that potent forward line. Noah Balta at times, though, looked a little bit adrift, Kane. What did you make of his performance?
It's putting it nicely. He looked like he was playing a different sport. So there's the one that he tries to pick off in the middle of the ground. That's not in his package. So I'd just be putting that one away if I was Noah and kicking it 60 metres down the line. We saw, a number of turnovers, unfortunately, when he had the footy in his hands. But it was the stuff like this in the one-on-one matchup with Darcy. Now, he's a tough matchup, but he was just lost. That one there, if you had a look behind the goals, you just completely misread that. The space that he's allowing Darcy to lead. You're playing on the best player in football. At least go with him and not let him get a run towards the football. So, once again, trying to pick kicks off through the middle of the ground. So, I said a couple of weeks ago that they should put him away for the year because I think the curfew has really hampered his continuity of his football. He's a player that needs to play because when he loses touch badly. And in for one, out for one, curfew, disruptions, off-field distractions has really hurt his form. And it's just not good enough for a leader of that footy club. So I just can't imagine how much they are regretting signing him for that 7-year deal. He's had a really disappointing year.
So that's Sunday's games in the book, Kane. But the biggest story to emanate from the weekend does revolve around Carlton after their shock 11-point loss to the North Melbourne Football Club. I mean, it was a scoreline that flattered them in the end. They trailed by as much as 46 points. And it's ignited a discussion around their coach, Michael Voss, and whether rightfully or wrongfully, he is the man to take them forward. What say you when it comes to Voss's future?
Yeah, I understand the discussion, and it's going to be a big talking point because they've underperformed. And when you underperform, often it is the coach that cops it and cops the pressure. Not for the first time, mind you, for Michael Voss, but I just think the last thing that Carlton need is to sack another coach. And we've seen them do that in the past and panic and react as we have a look at the coaches there that they've sacked in the last 20 years. There's some big names there, and there's quite a group from 2019 onwards, like 2 coaches there, and if you sack Michael Voss to make it 3 in the space of 6 years would be a mistake. So he's contracted until the end of next year. I'll just be holding until the halfway point of next year and finding out. Largely, I think it's around personnel. Yep, there's definitely some game style stuff with the way that they move the football. They kick backwards far too often and just don't give their forwards a chance. But I think a revitalised coaching group, they've got to get some midfielders in that can run. And when you look at that midfield group, their athletic profile is horrible. Like even Patrick Cripps is not a runner. And I think you've seen how much Melbourne have struggled when you look at Petrarca and Oliver and Viney and players that can't run versus what Geelong have been able to do and add some real runners, some elite speed, some elite endurance into that midfield. So that's the number one priority. Then a small forward, I was baffled as to why Motlop started as the sub, came on and had an immediate impact. They don't have, he's the only small forward they've got, and they opted to start him as a sub. So that was ridiculous and bizarre. And then they need another running halfback. So where they get that from, I'm not sure, because their first pick in the draft right now is 36. So that's not ideal. But there's some list changes that need to be made, and Michael Voss needs help. I think he could do worse, and getting Ken Hinkley to come across and look at some of the ball movement stuff, which has been one of Ken's strengths. And if he wasn't a senior coach, for that to be his portfolio and to offer him a steady hand of leadership and someone that's been through the pressure before as well, and they've worked together, would be a good addition.
I mean, Ken's a very ambitious man. He's a career coach. Do you think he would enjoy being an understudy? That's what he would be if he went to Carlton alongside Michael Voss.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 18 jobs though, isn't there? Well, there's less than that because there's a few clubs that are pretty happy with their coach. I think Geelong are pretty happy with theirs. I think Gold Coast are fine with theirs. So there may only be one or two jobs that come up. So Ken's probably got no choice. I think he takes the best available job. And I think a coaching director or a senior assistant coach under Michael Voss at a big club would be a change for him, but I just think he loves footy. He loves working with players, and I think he would take the best available job and biggest challenge. And certainly, I imagine if they were able to turn it around and become really competitive again, what the rewards would be like at Carlton if that was to happen.
Time now for Volcano.
So I just want to have a listen to this from Isaac Heaney after he was the best player on the ground against Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval yesterday.
I was expecting a pretty hard tag, and he came to me, but then he said he was pretty crook, so it was nice to get a bit of freedom throughout the night.
I've heard it all. I really have. Imagine, honestly, like you can laugh, and that's the right reaction, mind you, to laugh, Sarah, because I almost laughed. But when you think about it, what is going on inside a player's mind who is tasked with shutting down the opposition's best player and then going to him? So this is the start of the game. Look at Heaney's start. 1-2, bang. He had the look in his eye. They all did, actually. He thought their pressure was unbelievable. He ends up with, I think it was 28 and 2 goals, and was the best player on the ground with Mills and also Grundy. And Bergman has gone to him and said, hey, mate, I can't go with you today because I've been a little bit crook. Honestly, it just sums up Port Adelaide for me. There is a lack of resilience about this group. They are a nice team when they have it on their terms, like they did last week against Melbourne. The corridor opens up and they can get their ball movement going through the middle of the ground. Terrific. Or when they play against a rival like Hawthorn or Adelaide, they'll get themselves up for it. When they come up against teams that they should win, there's a real lack of resilience about it. Now, Bergman's the least of their problems because he's had such a strong year. But for him to go to Isaac Heaney, and I've played that role before, the last thing you want to do is give your opponent a tiny inch. I would never even shake hands with an opponent before the game because I always saw that's the mental edge. If you give them that, then they're going to get on top of you. Imagine saying, I can't go with you today, mate, because I'm a bit crook. It's one of the most bizarre things and embarrassing things, to be fair. If I was Miles Bergman walking back into the Port Adelaide Football Club facing my teammates on Monday, I'd definitely have my head between my legs.
It's almost like something you would hear in an Amos league or something like that, but certainly not in a professional league like the AFL. Just on the Swans, I thought they really straightened up and had great energy with Papley and Gould and Black in the side. Cal Mills probably had his best game in some time. And even Joel Amadi, who was so wayward in front of goal, and we'll get to him now because he kicked 0-6, and that's not taking into account the misses. Strangely, I thought he was still a presence up forward, Kane, but it's a stark contrast to this at Adelaide Oval last year where he looks like Plugger Lockett in front of goal.
9-1 he kicked on this day, same ground. I mean, it was similar conditions. There wasn't a breath of wind here yesterday. I was there. Not a breath. Perfect conditions. And he just lost all confidence and momentum. See how he's just really tentative with his run up and his ball drop and leaning back? There's no momentum whatsoever going through the ball. So you've got to finish after you've kicked going through the ball. Now, that's the negative. The positive is that he took 7 marks inside forward 50 and could have had an absolute day out. So if they can get that right, I actually think it really opens up for Sydney. As you said, they look a different team with Goulden. He had 8 kicks in the first quarter, 3 score involvements, and just changes their whole ball movement profile. Mills behind the ball was rock solid, and Papley was angry, as he always is, and brings the energy. And it just gives you some flexibility with Warner and Heaney. And I thought McInerney was really important as well, and Campbell. So, I mean, and Hayward, they've got players everywhere. So I just think there's 2 pivotal games coming up in the next fortnight. They play the Western Bulldogs and Fremantle at home. If they can get those done, then it really opens up for them. There's St Kilda in there, there's North in there, there's West Coast in there, there's the Giants, which is in Sydney, and that's a game that they could, easily win. So that was really important for them, and they just look a different team with those names back.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Definitely. I mean, it's going to be hard. Their percentage isn't great, and they started the season slowly, and, you're probably going to need 14 wins to get there. But there's going to be teams that get on a run, and when you play teams around you, like the Western Bulldogs and Fremantle in the next 2 weeks, they win those 2, then I probably think they do make the 8.
Now, when it comes to the draft class of 2023 and 2 key forwards, one taken at pick 10 in Nate Caddy, the other pick 31 in Logan Morris, you are enamoured, Kane. Actually, I think you're in love. You've got the love bug when it comes to these 2 young forwards. But I'm going to put you on the spot. If you have to pick one, who are you choosing out of Nate Caddy and Logan Morris?
Yes, well, I don't want to give you the condition that I love them both, but I will. But this is the man. This is my man for me. Like, they're 17th for inside 50s, Essendon. So give him the forward line that Brisbane have and the amount of entries that they have, and this is a different player. Who can do that? Those 2 kicks at 200 centimetres. Who can do this? So he did 7 or 8 things in this game that I was absolutely blown away with. Then he kicks a 75-metre torp, and you go, the sky's just a limit for this player. He needs help, and Langford's not there, just running at full speed, picking it up one hand, no worries. So I think when he gets a little bit more help and some senior players around him, when they fix their ball movement, which was a disaster for them on Thursday night. Speaking of kicking it backwards, they just love to kick it backwards. So they get a lot of the footy Essendon, but they don't send it forward, which is an issue. When that starts to turn, I think with Sam Darcy, he can be the best player in the competition in 5 years.
Logan Morris, though, 5 goals back-to-back, the youngest player to do that for the first time since Matthew Lloyd in 1997. You can't argue with that, Gang.
No, you can't. And look, there's a nice little bit of aggression and really healthy belief in his own ability that I admire about him. And the best thing about him is he's really reliable in front of goal as well. And it's been against good opponents. So to do this in Geelong against really strong defence, and last week he torched Sam Taylor. I've never seen a player torch Sam Taylor like he did, and then he was in his face. But I just think Caddy has more tricks. I think he's got more height. I think he's got a better athletic profile. I think he's got more speed and more versatility. So I would go Caddy, but I mean, you'd be pretty happy. One was, I think, slipped to pick 10, the other pick 31. I'm not sure what the teams were doing that overlooked those 2 in the draft.
We'll revisit this conversation in 10 and 15 years' time. But as for the Pies, well, they're 6 points clear on top of the ladder now, a gritty performance against St Kilda. And I thought the player that epitomised that grit was Nick Daicos, because he was chafing under surveillance from a really heavy Marcus Windhager tag. But he's tough, isn't he? He just gets the job done week in, week out.
So that's the word. I hear the murmurs, and I'm sure you do too. And I think largely it comes from jealous opposition supporters. No one with any credibility questions Nick Daicos' toughness, but there's some little murmurs about this. So I want to highlight these efforts. That tackle there, look at the time, look at the score, look at the opponent who probably has 20 kilos on him, and he nails it. This here, bang, put your head over it against a player that is coming at full speed and win it. Then he kicks this goal with Windhager hanging off him for the whole of the night. No one gets a tag anymore, and he cops the tag and does it. And then this is the biggest gut run you'll see for the year. Like, who can go with him? No one. Look at the speed and endurance. There's 8 minutes to go in the game, and he's still running with that speed. At that stage, the game is still in the balance. So the murmurs, the jealousy from opposition supporters is laughable, and I want it to come to an end. There should be no doubts about that player's toughness, both mentally and physically, with what we saw once again on Saturday night with a tag which no midfielder is getting these days.
Let's finish with the temperature test. Thanks to Sportsbet, as the rain, I think, is coming down on your tin roof. But there's 3 teams that are running hot.
There is, and they're the premiership favourites there. I've held firm with Geelong. I just think it's an off night. I thought Chris Fagan and Brisbane came with a real attitude about that and sort of sliced them up through the middle of the ground. So I think there's a fair bit that Geelong can review, and they will do that, and they'll do that maturely, and there'll be no rash decisions. And then down to the simmering section, they're the only teams that can play finals. Sydney in the mix, as we said. And then the rest are frozen and season over. We're going to see some pretty ordinary performances, unfortunately, in the back half of the year. But the race is wide open, and it's probably down to 4 or 5 that can win it.
Hey, but no ordinary performances from us on First Up with Kane Cornes. We'll see you again next week, Kane.
Thanks, Sarah.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.